for Children of the War, please welcome the Principal Director of Music, Royal Marines, Lieutenant Colonel Hugh Williams.
Following on the government's desire, the parents should decide now whether they want their children sent to safer areas in the event of air raids, and that more householders should act as foster parents, and children already evacuated should remain where they are.
The reason we are in America is because we have been evacuated from England. I came here because the war broke out, to be safe.
And I had no experience, no idea what was going on.
When my granddad had a bomb upset, it took out 6 houses.
One day, came home and my mother said that, oh, you and your sister are going to be evacuated to New Zealand. Where on earth is that?
I do remember on one occasion coming home from school, and I was walking with another little girl. She pointed up to the sky and said, look, there's battles going on up there. And I looked up, very, very high up in the sky, I could see 2 aeroplanes having a dogfight. So that was obviously the Battle of Britain that had started.
Another government safety measure is to move thousands of evacuated children from the southeast coast areas.
My mother had no alternative. I did endure some very terrifying bombing raids. You come out in the morning, several houses up the other end of the street, not far away, were gone.
And then, of course, came the day when we were evacuated.
Into Port Melbourne comes a Polish liner bringing a large number of British evacuee children to their new homeland. Far removed from the horrors of aerial warfare, they come ashore at Victoria's capital city. One young explorer carries a French tin hat and wears a solar token. Sun and shrapnel are all the same to him, but he's got the right spirit, and there goes for them all. It's chins up all along the line.
A lot of children were seasick initially, lonely. Me, I was happy as a little pig. I was in the top bunk, and luckily by my foot was a porthole, which has become quite a joy.
I don't remember getting on the bus. I must have blocked it out. I remember being on the bus and getting off, and I remember being on the train to go to Gore.
My sister, she was 5 years old, and we'd had some very heavy bombing raids, and my mother decided that she too must now be evacuated, but she took her to a convent, and my mother said goodbye to my sister, and in that instant she realised she was going to be left behind there. As we walked away down the street, a long way from within these thick walls, I could hear my sister screaming, and it's something that's lived with me. Sorry. I could hear her scream. I can close my eyes to this day and I hear those screams.
A new batch of children evacuated from Britain has arrived safely in Canada, safe till wars and arms and war's dangers are over. boys and girls from another country, have found in the Dominion a warm welcome from stout hearts.
I've come from Mountbatten, I'm 9 years old. I think Canada's a good place, but no one's going to sit on Mountbatten.
I think it was about 11 o'clockish one evening. Pipes coming through the loudspeakers, we could see the Volendam, which was a Dutch liner, which was next to us in the convoy and carrying the Canadian evacuees. And it was a blaze of light. There were explosions, noise all around, ship sirens going. They were all saved and went back to Liverpool. Some of them opted not to go home, but to go on the next batch, which was a ship called the City of Benares. That too, the Germans decided was torpedo.
321 children from the British Isles are on their way to Canada. The U-boat found in the mid-Atlantic and in the usual Nazi way torpedoed their ship.
77 of those evacuees bound for Canada died.
They were brought ashore at the Scottish port in the deepening night, safe in the arms of the navy.
Oh, yeah. Shh. You'll wake the kiddies. Oh, well, you've done it now. They're all awake in a jiffy, and little Miss Muppet starts a new day. All these children have been evacuated to North Wales from blitzed areas in London. Here's a grand game, fellas. Swimming without getting your feet wet. Come on, Steve. That reminds me, they've got roly-poly for lunch today.
I was 10 and my sister was 3.5. My mother stipulated that we were to stay together. People were coming in from the village choosing the evacuees that they wanted. Nobody chose us. We were taken and put in a car with a lady who drove us to the cottage. We were strange to them and hadn't ever seen anybody Jewish before. We were given a meal when we arrived, but I couldn't eat it because it was pork. We're Jewish and I knew I shouldn't be eating pork.
I was taken on the train to there was Hazelmere, and I was introduced to the family, which consisted of husband and wife, Auntie Betty, I had to call her, and Uncle Reg, and they had a son. He did bully me a lot there. I was not at all a happy little boy.
We arrived at Wellington, and the next day we were divided into groups. And I was with a group of, I think it was about 24 of us, who went to Auckland for our stay.
The BBC arranged to broadcast transatlantic chat between parents in Britain and evacuee children in Canada and America. You couldn't honestly claim that it makes an exciting newsreel picture. Conversations consisted of both sides saying, "How are you?" and telling each other they were fine. But it is a tragic feature of life today.
Ian, all right, then, fine, and you're looking splendid. If you're going to be up, you'll be well. We are.
At the end of 1942, the people I was with told my mother they didn't want me anymore. So the following term I went to another family in a town in Hazelmere. And that, I have to say, was very unpleasant. They were not nice people at all.
It was about a mile walk to school. There were 60 of us in a class, so we couldn't learn anything. We were given lots of singing lessons, all patriotic songs, and the headmaster would take us walking around the playground. He'd been a captain in the First World War. I think he thought we were his private army.
The family I went to was one of the richest in the Dominion, where the driveway was longer than the road I lived in. I'd fallen on my feet, and I started living a life that I hadn't before. I was taught table manners by my foster father, and I rapidly learned to become a proper gentleman, as it were. The school was delightful, everybody was great. I'd go down the beach every day and learn to swim.
There's an interesting contrast in the male and female views on co-education.
Because it isn't boarding school, it's girls and boys.
Oh, is it? How do you like that?
Oh, I think that's much better.
The little girl is less enthusiastic.
Do you like having boys in school? They're okay. Oh, they're okay.
I'd learned to swim, I'd learned how to sail a boat, I'd learned how to row a boat, launch it into rough water, how to fish, how to do a dozen things which I would have never ever learned if I'd been home here.
I had to get out, be out of the house until it was bedtime. And the same with any other thing, I had to be out of the house on Saturdays and Sundays, wandering around Hazelmere. But I was only 6, 7 years old. I realised now that they were so in my my children's sweet ration and my egg ration on the black market. They were nasty, nasty people. And what they did was show me the other side of life.
In the evenings as well, I used to stand out in the road and we'd watch Plymouth being bombed, but you could see the bombs coming down.
The war was coming to an end, and it was time to think about going home.
I was happy to be going home. When my father came down to take us home, he wouldn't take us home that day because it was Friday the 13th and he was very superstitious. So we went home the following day.
I consider that my evacuation experience wasn't a happy one, but I consider myself lucky compared to many people, anyway, stories I've heard from the war.
And it wasn't until some years afterwards I found out that I didn't have to go home, I could have stayed.
I said to her mother after I'd written out my experiences, how could you let two such young children go away from you? And she said, we were told we had to, so we did it.
It was a very traumatic experience, and I think that's why my subconscious mind blotted it out.
I come from Stirling. I come from Edinburgh. I come from Glasgow. I come from Yorkshire. I come from Liverpool. I come from London.
If there hadn't been a war, I wouldn't be here now, I'd be dead. I'd been killed by the Germans, and I knew what the Germans were doing to the Jews.
Let us remember those who will not come back. Their constancy and courage in battle, their sacrifice and endurance in the face of a merciless enemy. Let us remember the men in all the services, and the women in all of the services who have laid down their lives.
In the war effort, from those on the front line to those working hard to keep our people safe at home. Everyone played a part in some way. Our evacuees were just children. Each had a unique experience, but all shared the hope of one day returning home. The war shaped a whole generation, many of whom are still affected by this today. On May the 8th, 1945, war finally gave way to peace and the safety to return to their families once again.